Robot labor, robots in parks, robots making pizza, Tomas.
Robots everywhere.
Robots everywhere. It must be a theme for the upcoming Terminator movie or something.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
Super excited about it.
Yes, sir. Welcome to Friday on the Fly. You have come to the right place for your non-expert commentary on current events in ag and otherwise, really. So if that was your goal, you've made it to the right place.
All things different
us.
every time. You never know
Never
what
know.
we're going to talk about because we don't know what we're going to talk
don't.
about
Otherwise,
until pretty well like, I don't know, 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
we could not be legitimately called Friday on the Fly, could we, Tomas? All right.
It is the perfect name. It's
Yes, it came upon us in a moment of enlightenment. Not even enlightenment, that's a terrible word. In a moment of epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Mm.
So, what are we talking about here, Tomas, with the robots in labor?
We're excited. We've got the 3 articles here, and it all kind of goes into the theme of the upcoming Terminator movie, and we'll talk about that, I think, at the very end, but coming up this month. So, and really the only reason we started it was because this first article popped up on AgWeb. Taylor Leach put it out here yesterday, and talks about, the title is Main Reason to Choose Robots, Labor, Labor, Labor. And it goes into the dairy industry and why would a farmer in the dairy industry invest in the autonomous milking systems that they have available out there. And there's a lot of different reasons down here, a lot of bullet points, but the main reason she's saying is trying to find labor is hard.
Especially for that industry, right?
Yes.
Because it's so demanding.
Yes.
Right. So, yeah, they do give some bullet points beyond that. Like Tomas just said, labor is the biggest part. But let me just give a little quote here. There's some bullet points I'll add. And remember, all these articles you can find in the episode description on the website itself, on Plow Talk. Just click on the episode and you can find it in the description there. And it should be linked. So, quote, while a robot decreases the amount of labor put into milking the animals, adding robotic milkers also comes with a few other added perks, according to Pit Caranta. Am I even? Okay. Yep. These include, it wouldn't be Friday on the Fly if there wasn't a name that just baffled us. So point number 1, being less physically demanding, a more flexible time schedule for producers, more milking per cow per day, caters to those who have a keen interest in data and technology, gives farmers the ability to expand without bringing in extra labor. Now that fourth point is odd to me. It kind of sticks out. It's like caters to those who have a keen interest. It's not even telling us that it necessarily the data itself is helpful, though I assume it is.
Sure.
But it's just funny that it's just geared, like one of the perks is that it's just if somebody's interested in
They're
the
trying
data.
to recruit through the article.
Right, yeah. But anyway, yeah, so there's some perks of it. And like was mentioned just a few moments ago, if you're like me and haven't grown up on a dairy farm, but you've met dairy farmers, you always hear about how it's basically surprising that you're even seeing that person off the farm.
Right.
Because they're constantly busy. They're constantly... they've got 7 kids that are helping them, and they're constantly moving. And so I can see how this could be certainly a perk. At the very least, the gentleman and his wife could get time off the farm,
Yeah, and it doesn't go into the exact cost of, the automation, and that's something that every individual has to weigh, right?
Yep.
The cost versus the cost of having that labor. But in an industry that, with the dairy industry, it's declining. We've seen a lot of dairies close just around our area. I think the larger dairies, some are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're investing in technology and automation, robotics, like this article suggests.
Right along those lines, Tomas, that's a good point, because that, I think, parallels what you see in row crop agriculture, right? When you see the technology advance as the farmers get bigger, and which comes first, the chicken or the egg there? I don't know. But as farms get bigger, it seems like there needs to be a utilization of this GPS technology to gain as much profit as possible. When you're farming 10,000 acres, every row counts, right? Every little bit that you can get counts. So it's interesting that the parallel to this in the dairy industry is simply having robots to be able to milk the cows for you. I don't know. You see the parallel there, Tomas?
Oh
or
yeah,
am I-
absolutely. And yeah, there's more justification for that cost the larger you are. So
Yeah.
the same thing in automated milking systems, right? The more cows you have going through that system, the faster it will pay for itself. So
Right. Exactly.
yeah, there's definitely a correlation.
Pay
there.
some up front and save some later, right?
Could be. And if you
Possibly.
can't find anybody to work, you might as well pay the money because that's the world we live in today.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to robots in a park. This isn't really ag related, but we just it went with the theme of robotics. So
Yeah,
Tomas,
it
tell me
helped.
something.
It helped define our theme of robotics today because after we saw the milking article, we started searching the old regular news sources, and we've got one here from NBC News. The title: A RoboCop, a Park, and a Fight. How expectations about robots are clashing with reality.
Yes,
And-
this sounds like iRobot from Will Smith was in that one or
Yeah.
whatever. That's what I thought
Yeah.
of instantly. Maybe.
And yeah,
Isn't the
watch the
case.
video on here because it's hilarious watching these robots. And we talked about the food delivery robots at Purdue.
Right.
We talked
Yep.
about that in the past, and I was at Purdue this week, and some of the students talking about the robots, they said it is just absolutely ridiculous. You wait an hour to get your food, and it's cold, and like people just stand in front of
Yeah.
them on the sidewalk, and they just the robots just stop and wait until things move.
It's interesting
And-
though because that's always the complaint, right? Of new technology. It's like this thing doesn't work. It's too
Yeah.
expensive. It doesn't go fast enough. It doesn't produce enough. But what always ends up happening, right? Like GPS. For instance, think of maybe a TomTom back in the day.
Sure.
This thing isn't connecting with the satellites very well. I'm getting lost. That was back when roads weren't really accounted for as well.
Mhm.
But now, I mean, who out there, especially if you're
Yeah.
in a major city, I know I did this all the time in LA, who out there is not using their iPhone or their smartphone to get them around? So
Yeah, your phone has an app already downloaded on it when
Right.
you get your phone. So
exactly. So I think that as you go on with your point with the Purdue deal, that hopefully they'll become useful and not in a scary sense.
Sure.
Advance, but
Right.
but become useful. So
Yeah, so this article is not food delivery in
right,
California.
This
I
is,
almost said LA. I don't think it's LA.
no, it's Huntington Park.
Okay, Huntington Park, California. But they're they have 70 police robots in this park, in the city.
My
called
video
Park.
hasn't uploaded, so I can't even see what these things look like. So
It looks like a little spaceship, to be honest with
like
you.
a
It's
spaceship,
like cone
not like a
shaped.
person or anything, just like
no,
a little.
it is spaceship.
That's like R2D2 for
yes,
Pete's sake. Look at that little
very
guy.
much so, very much so. We've got little R2D2s running
Some
around.
Star Wars fans
So,
are out there making these things.
It's just interesting in this article and in the story in here. It's trying to portray different.
It's trying to
things in here.
get
But
clicks, right? It's
Right.
clickbait for sure.
But
yeah.
essentially, they're in there. They're rolling around in the streets of this town and in different parks and areas. Hey, help keep our park clean. Help do these. It's talking in these different
Indoctrinating
things.
the patrons.
Right, and they're leased from a separate company, and
Yeah.
it says here for like $60,000 to $70,000 a year for one. It's leased
Wow.
there, but there was a fight going on in this park, so the
Yeah.
lady ran over and like clicked the 911 button on the robot.
Which is useful.
Sure,
Should
it
have
should be, but it didn't connect to anybody because
Yeah.
that function's not available yet.
Yeah.
And the robot just said, "Please move out of my way. I need to continue to."
How
stroll the
helpful
streets."
that was.
And,
yeah.
and I don't know what she expected from the robot. Like,
Yeah.
hey, Mr. Robot, go over here and take care of this,
Yeah.
or connect me with somebody? Why don't you pull out your phone and dial 911? I don't know.
That's
but
an interesting point because we have our phones on us all the time. So why didn't she just pull out a phone? Because I guarantee she had one.
Yeah.
But just to quote her, she says, "I was pushing the button, but it said, 'Step out of the way.'" Guevara said, "It just kept ringing and ringing, and I kept pushing and pushing." At that point, she should have, grabbed a phone or whatever. She thought maybe the robot, it says, which stands about 5 feet tall. That's pretty tall. It didn't look that tall in the picture you showed me, maybe 3
Yeah.
foot, but yeah, that's tall. Taller than R2D2, I'll tell you that much. And has police emblazoned on its egg-shaped body. Wanted a visual of her face, so she crouched down for the camera. It still didn't work. Yet, it got her picture, I bet. Interesting stuff here. Man, conspiracies galore. We'll be coming out on this one. So,
And-
robots, you
yeah.
want to make the last
Well, I
comment
just
there?
say somewhere in here it talks about eventually. Police were called. They got there really late, and the one lady in the fight got taken off on a stretcher. So the robot.
It was
didn't do
ladies
any-
in a fight?
I think so.
Oh,
I can't
man.
find it now, but that's
I hope
typical
not.
Friday on the fly.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were some different different things.
It's a
And there's-
400-pound robot, by the way, too.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
a
they're
big.
ginormous. Yeah, 5 foot tall, 400
How are these
pound.
things roaming parks with little children
I
in
don't
them?
know.
What the
The
world?
one picture, yeah, the one picture here, it dwarfs the little kid. I mean,
Golly, yeah.
they're
What
huge.
happens if that thing goes haywire?
You got to make them big enough so they don't get stolen. I mean, you don't want.
Yeah, that makes
I don't
sense.
know.
But
I don't know.
I mean, they can
I don't
still
know how
get.
they work.
Yeah. Anyway, all right.
That's
Well,
funny.
interesting stuff. Look that article up again. It'll be linked in the description. Lastly, we have probably my favorite of these three robots for sure.
I would agree.
Because this makes the most sense to the
100%.
goodness and
100%.
well-being of society.
Yep.
It makes sense to even the health of individuals mentally, psychologically, if you want to use the pop culture terms.
It's probably what I'm going to be partaking in later today.
Right. This robot can make 300 pizzas in an hour. Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived.
We have arrived. It's a company called Picnic out of Seattle, I believe. And, yeah, they've developed this robot that will create 300 12-inch pizzas in an hour or 180
This makes total
18-inch
sense.
pizzas in an hour.
This
So
makes
the
sense.
online order comes in, bam, hits the computer, and directly goes to this robot.
Bada
The
bing,
robot
bada
starts
boom.
making the pizza.
Yeah.
Does he flip the dough out? I don't think so. Watch the video on the link here. But they roll the dough. They
It says right here. Let me read it for you. Just because you brought up that point. I'm always interrupting you, Tomas.
Mhm.
I feel
Go
like
ahead.
people think
No, you're good.
I'm a terrible person to you. While the pizza bot does its share of the work, dough preparation, sauce making, and baking are all done by non-robots, aka humans, as if we needed the aka.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't. It
but-
doesn't actually make the dough or make the
Right,
sauce or like cut the toppings or anything. But it's got the assembly line there kind of scheduled. So when an order comes in, it gets the dough, it rolls it out, applies the sauce, puts the toppings on in perfect proportion. I'm sure as robotics are, and not the typical. I can't even imagine working in a pizza place. You take out a handful and I'd load stuff up. It's freaking weird. So
Like, here you go.
I
Have a
could
nice
not-
day. Loading up
Three-
the extra cheese. And, yeah. Yeah,
So
so
300 pizzas an hour. Does that calculate down to like 5 a minute?
you're the
Is that-
mathematician.
Is that pretty?
You went to
pretty close to
you
that?
almost did your master's in math, didn't you?
No,
No?
definitely
Yeah,
not.
you did.
Not in math.
You're the one in high school that you didn't even have to
No.
study and you were getting A's on your calculus exams.
I did kind of sleep through. That class was so boring. Finding the area.
Says
It does
most
not,
people,
it does
but not for the
translate
same
to
reason as
any
as you do.
anything.
Anyway, so it can do. Let's see. Did you already say that it could do 100, 180,
Yeah.
18-inch? Okay, so that's.
It's just.
I'm just saying
It's
that
impressive.
this is technology put to good use, folks. This right here. Again, we've arrived. I don't see why we need to advance anything else now, unless if you want to put out 500 or 600 pizzas an hour.
It is the contrary side of all of this, the robotics and everything. I mean, there's automated ordering systems now, like McDonald's. There's
Yeah.
automatic
Amazon's-
checkouts at like Walmart. You don't even
Right.
have to interact with people. I think we're losing. I don't want to get down to this because we're going to go down a rabbit hole, but we're losing the
You're
connection to
looking at me
people
as if I
because
like
of
to talk
all
about
of
something.
all the robotics and everything involved. That there's less opportunity for labor, and
Yeah.
there's less of labor. So it works and it's in tandem with each other, but it's just the ability to have a conversation with an individual. If you go to the checkout line and they're scanning your groceries and everything, it's nice to have just
Some conversation.
you feel connection with that. It sounds silly, but
It's not, Tomas. It's not silly.
it-
but
it's,
do
it's,
this for
it's
me.
weird. It's not like you're best friends with those people, but
Right.
there can be
Back in the day, you
general
would have been in a
concern
smaller grocery store setting. But bring it
Yeah.
back home, though. Let's bring it back full circle because the last two episodes of Friday on the Fly, we haven't talked as much about ag. So bring that very point back into agriculture specifically. What are your thoughts then in that same regard concerning agriculture?
I think there's still that demand for people, and there's still the need for that connection.
Mhm.
And as technology continues to increase and become more abundant in agriculture, we need more people who are interested in it. So
Yeah.
just like that point you made from the cow article, who have a keen interest.
Yeah.
If you are out there and you have a keen interest in IT and technology and different things, you're needed in agriculture.
Right.
And
It's
it's
an
a
interesting
non-traditional path, but it's definitely needed.
It's an interesting double-edged sword, right? So you have the side of like what you were saying. A lot of the technology has actually hindered our social skills, say in the checkout line, but it's also something that is happening regardless, like in the ag industry, and we do in fact need people, right? So it's potentially hurting people in one way that we haven't even seen the full ramifications of yet because we're still too young in this revolution that's happened, technology revolution. But then at the same time, it's funny how we still need then people to actually do this, right? So anyway, kind of a positive and negative maybe, but
yeah. I think about the grocery store as an example, right? Today you can even order your groceries on Amazon and it gets delivered to you in an hour, and you,
I was gonna say that earlier
you talk
with
to
the-
nobody, right? Or you can order it online from
and they're using
Walmart.
drones, right? They're testing the drone
yeah, there's
deal,
all
right,
kinds
and all
of
that.
silly stuff going on. You can order on Walmart. You can go into Walmart. You can scan your thing, get it out of the case, and really only see maybe one person.
Right.
You, however many years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70, you would go to a local grocery store in your small town, and you would know that person, and you would probably been to church with that person, or your kids were in school with that person's children, so you had a connection to those, and you even
saw them at the baseball games.
Yeah, you even traded for groceries. So I'm the butcher, I give you meat, you give me
and you build
vegetables
relationships to
or
where
whatever.
discounts happen. You know, you have that loyalty to each other. And,
Think back 100 years ago. You didn't go to the grocery store, or 150, however long. You grew your own vegetables. So it's almost kind of, and you didn't talk to anybody when you were growing your own. So it's not like the having to go and have those conversations socially, going to fast food restaurants and, you know, interacting with somebody taking your food and making your order, or a waitress. You know, that stuff hasn't always been around.
Right.
So it's not like it's the absolute have-to norm. It's just interesting how things continue to change.
Yeah, it's interesting what you just brought up, because I hadn't thought of it in that way, of that when you actually go back to the feudal age even, the typical life of an individual, say a peasant, they would not leave a roughly a 7-mile radius in their entire life.
Sure.
So therein you have both. You would be social with who you were around, but you weren't abundantly social, as in you were going out to different places. So yeah, fascinating stuff coming up. And again, in light of there's some crazy stuff happening, because Hollywood's changing things with the movies. So there's a whole new like paradigm that they're doing these new movies with, but it is nonetheless exciting. I'm not excited about the new paradigms, but I am excited about the fact that Terminator keeps coming out.
Sure.
Rambo's coming out. Has Rambo come out? I don't even know. And then my favorite, and I have a feeling I'm going to be heartbroken, but nonetheless, Tom Cruise is in it at least. Top Gun is coming out next year. So anyway, we thought it'd be fun to kind of connect it to Terminator coming out at the end of the month, October 31st. And it's sure to be an action-packed deal. Arnold Schwarzenegger, at 85 years old, is still running around like a robot. He's not 85, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so check that out, I guess. And I'm just going to stop myself from continuing to talk so that we can cut this thing short so people can listen to it sooner.
We'll wrap it up. Everybody have fun watching baseball this weekend. Playoffs have started, so
I just retracted my statement. Feast of the Hunter's Moon.
Oh,
this Saturday.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It's gonna rain. So I'm going. I'm taking the kids.
Are you?
Anybody that's local over there in Weotnon, Fort
Weotnon.
Weotnon. Go check that out. Some speaking of going back to the olden days, there's going to be some blacksmithing there. There's going to be some trades there. There's going to be reenactments of local battles that happened in the Tippecanoe area. And it's a bundle of fun, and the joke is that it always rains, so expect rainfall, farmers out there in this area this coming weekend.
I don't think they're expecting rain, so that's kind of
that
interesting.
Would be different.
So,
it would be nice.
It's going to be interesting.
All right, well, let's sign off, Tomas. Thank you all out there for joining us. Please do share this episode, subscribe to your favorite listening platform, and come back next Friday for episode 22. Tomas, thank you, sir.
Have a good week.